woods. Some detail for a good mental image. I live in a massive subdivision that surrounds a bunch of woods affectionately referred to as the trails. I suppose the people who own it left it untouched in case they wanted to add more streets. Anyway, I live down the street from one of the main entrances that most people use and know of. My friends and I were a resilient bunch who liked to go out there and have fires, get drunk, and smoke a little, if you know what I mean. So considering we were out there so much, we decided we were going to build ourselves a little hideout, fort of sorts, where we could party and even camp. We ended up with a good small clearing off of one of the winding paths where we had set up a good sized lean-to with some evergreen on top as our roof and named it Bear Cave. Now for the incident in question. This happened back when I was about 17 to 19 years old. I had just gotten off work and had gone to grab some fast food. My friends had called me earlier letting me know we were going to meet at Bear Cave. So after I got home, I changed into some warmer clothes as this was during late fall to early winter and it had been unusually cold that night. So I decided I should get out there as soon as possible and decided to take my food with me and eat there. Now, it's about 8:30 and the moon was barely visible through the trees, but knowing the trail like the back of my hand, I wasn't worried and assumed they would already have a fire started. As I approached, I walked up to our hidden entrance and saw there was no fire and heard no sounds. I took my phone out and texted one asking where they were. They replied something along the lines of, "Sorry man, we're going to be about 15 minutes. Great, I thought to myself. I ducked in and started trying to scrape together some wood and kindling and get something started. Unfortunately, everything was wet and without a proper flashlight, this was before they were standard on phones, I couldn't get into the brush and dig anything up. Soon after, I decided I might as well eat and hurriedly scarfed down my 2 burgers. Before I knew it, I had been sitting out there for about 20 minutes and still no sign of anyone. I tried giving a couple of them a call and after 5 minutes with no callback, I texted them. Still no response. At this point, I was about fed up and my phone was about to die. So I made a mental note, 10 more minutes and I'm gone. At this point, I squatted down, holding my knees to my chest and tried getting warm. My back was to our little hut at the back of the site. I thought I heard something behind me. A slight crunch. I looked over my shoulder and from behind the shelter I saw what looked like 2 beady eyes glinting from the little moonlight entering through the trees. I quickly and quietly turned my full body to face it. At this point, I feel as though I am about to throw up or shit myself one. But keeping my mind about myself, I slowly reached to my right where I had laid a stick just in case something like this might happen. If this was a dog, it was big. And let me just clarify, this was not a wolf, as I live in the South and coyotes do not get this big. Something wasn't right. It just stared unblinking as if through me and made no sound whatsoever. I realized whatever this was, it wanted to come at me. Thinking fast, I decided my best interest was to throw it off guard. I threw the stick without seeing if it made contact, turned, and ran swiftly out the entrance, expertly placing my feet in all the safe places through the trail, assuring I wouldn't trip, though maintaining max speed. I didn't stop till I saw street lights, and it was safely on the road. About this time I see my friends pulling up and all I told them was I saw something. They didn't seem too interested and tried to go out. I told them sternly and no one suggested we go to my house and seemed suitable to them, and so we went. I still don't know what I saw out there and it was as though everyone forgot about it. I continued to go back out there, but only at daytime, or if at night, only with a friend. But I will never forget those unwavering eyes. The Highwayman. When I was about 30, I went on a road trip with my younger brother Martin. We were driving up the coast along Nova Scotia towards Newfoundland, happy to spend time with one another during the brief summer vacation we shared. We had been driving all day, and it was still a few hours to the nearest motel. We had been taking turns driving, but as we were both tired at this point, I pulled over on the shoulder of the highway to get a few hours of sleep. After what felt like a few minutes, I was woken by Martin, shaking my shoulder. "Yeah, we're going," I muttered, as I slowly came to. But when I turned to look at Martin, I saw he was terrified. And looking in the rearview mirror, "There's someone coming," he said. And I glanced at the mirror. Sure enough, there was someone walking down the road towards the car. The headlights were on, and in the red glow of the backlights, and I saw that they were in all black clothes. Their hands and head weren't covered, and I noticed that they were extremely pale, almost chalk white. "Andrew, let's go," Martin whispered. He was younger than I was by 6 years, and even though he often put up a tough act, I could tell he was frightened. Before I could put the car in gear, the person had reached the window. It was a man, tall, but a little overweight, and he was totally bald, except for thick black hair on the back of his head. In my surprise, I remember thinking he looked like a tall version of the Penguin from Batman. "Evening," he said, looking in the window at his, and he smiled widely. I noticed his teeth were as white as his skin, and his eyes were pinkish red. I wondered if he might have been an albino. "You two all right?" he asked. "We are," I told him. "Just getting some rest." Something about the guy was setting off warning bells in my head, and he glanced over at Martin, then at the empty back seat, smiling a little wider. At this point, my big brother instinct kicked in, and I thought about nothing else than getting my brother and I out of there. "Where are you two off to?" he asked. And I tried to dodge the question. "Just a road trip," I told him. "Nowhere special?" His smile faltered, and he said, "Where are you headed?" "I could give you some directions." "We're fine," I told him, and reached for the gear shift to get out of there. As soon as I did, he grabbed my wrist and held on. "Not safe to be alone on these roads," he said, still smiling widely. "You don't want to get into trouble." At this point, I'd gotten the car in gear and floored it out of there. He managed to hang on to my arm for a moment before losing his grip. We tore out of there. And as we did, Martin looked into the mirror. "Drew, he's still coming." I looked back, and sure enough, the guy was actually running down the road after us. He looked crazy. He wasn't smiling anymore, but his face was twisted into a snarl. He was screaming at us in pure rage. And I saw he was waving what looked like a big knife in his hand. Martin was cursing under his breath out of fear, and my hands were sweating on the wheel. But he couldn't keep up forever. And I saw him disappear into the darkness. As soon as we got to town, we notified the police about what happened. They had been getting similar reports all summer, and we're still trying to catch the guy. Martin and I headed to the hotel for the night. And Martin slept for a while, but I was wide awake. This guy could have killed my little brother and I while we slept, or even when he spoke to us. We got lucky. But I kept thinking about how badly it could have gone for us or someone else, and how I was never going to sleep on the side of the road again, no matter how tired I was.